Hey everybody, Dacia Coffee here, and welcome to my weekly live stream of Corporate Caffeine. What we do here every single Wednesday is try to give you the best ideas, tips, stories to maximize your personal impact in the business world and also accelerate your organizational success. So that's what we do. I'm a fractional chief marketing officer, so we talk marketing, but we also talk potential and personal growth and that kind of thing. Now, if you have never tuned in before, welcome. On some platforms, sometimes when the API is working, I can see your comments. And so please comment away, especially if you've got questions or anything like that on the topic. I am here to serve. Today is actually part 5 of the Road to Revenue series that I've been doing. And we are talking digital marketing. Now, I hope that you will turn in. We specialize in business to business companies. So especially if you are in a complicated environment or you have a complex sales environment, I really, really encourage you to hang in there with me and hear me out because it's 2021. No matter if you're talking the sales side of business development or the marketing side of business development, you simply cannot get away with not having a strong digital ecosystem is what I like to call it nowadays. And one of my favorite quotes is actually a proverb about the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. So if you're not out there, it's never too late. The only wrong thing that you can do is never do it because your competition is going to eat you for lunch. So before I dive in, I had to share, if you guys are not following me on some other platforms, I will be posting some pictures. We recently bought a new office in downtown Fort Worth that we're going to be moving into in a couple of weeks. So I am out of my mind, excited about creating space for creativity and innovation and growth for individuals and for companies. So many cool, exciting things going to be coming out of there. And gosh, it's too bad almost that I have a structured topic today because just so many things on my mind. Hopefully that I'll write some blogs about, everything from transitioning clients, and doing right by people, even though it's difficult, to, making time in your schedule, to working on urgent or not working on urgent things, but instead shifting and having the discipline to focus on important things. And in my experience, when you do that, especially if they're important things that align with heart and your highest and best giftings to help and serve other people, it's amazing how God will just open up space on your calendar when you're headed in the right direction. And so listening to signs, there's just been so many cool, exciting things, but we will have to do those topics another day. And maybe we'll have a panel discussion with some other leaders in a chat about what that looks like the kind of signs that you see and how emotional energy can drive momentum. But today, digital marketing. Okay, so just as a refresher, what we're doing or what I'm doing here is I'm taking you through my agency's Road to Revenue guide. And so I've been doing a multi-part series on this. And so this is week 5. The first week we went through how to cut waste from your business development. The second one was that we went through a focus worksheet and how to make sure that you're working on the right things so that you can really, really get aggressive momentum and short-term results, and overcome any hurdles that are standing in your way of revenue growth and of success. We went through, once you figured out what to focus on, the ABCs, align, build, and champion, how to do effective marketing execution, how to get it right and make sure that your stuff is working. And then last week, we talked about your marketing ATM. So how to make sure that your calls to action are on point so that you are guiding buyers towards a decision. And your ATM is attention calls to action, time calls to action, and money calls to action. And so how to effectively use that. So as we dive into this digital marketing, I'm going to go ahead and let you know that the assumption under this is that you've taken all of the advice up till now very seriously, that if you've downloaded the Road to Revenue kit, because there's lots of tools in there, not just one, that you are taking the Align Build Champion seriously. You have thought out your calls to action, and that you are already set up for success because you're saying the right thing and you're targeting the right people. So that is what we're going to assume. So I'm not going to talk very much about messaging today. It's my favorite topic, so it might sneak its way in there because it usually does, but that is not the purpose. I mean, we are really talking, easy for me to say, digital strategy. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now, the first thing I want to, let me share my screen really quickly so you can actually see what I'm looking at. This is one of the tools that that is in that kit, the Road to Revenue kit that I was talking about. So this is what I'm going to be taking you guys through, is that this digital marketing checklist. So now you know if my eyes are going someplace else, why. And let's dive in. Let me walk you through what we're looking at. So a couple different things to understand. Digital marketing is complex, duh, right? And there are different ways, and you need to be thoughtful. You can't necessarily do everything all at the same time. It takes a while to build it. And so when we're talking digital marketing, this is some of the factors that you really need to be thinking about for digital marketing success, right? So starting on the left-hand side, of course, we've got social media. Absolutely critical. I prefer video, and most algorithms do nowadays as well. Paid media, sometimes you need to pay to play. We'll talk about how to know when you're going to do that. You need to make sure that you have high value emails on the back end of any calls to action, so nurture campaigns that actually teach people that you have something worthy of opening and reading. We've got targeting, so how to make sure that you're reaching the right people. This is a huge place where people waste money, is not by having their targeting down. Making sure that your website is set up correctly from a messaging standpoint, from a tracking standpoint, and using it effectively, knowing what role it's supposed to play and exactly how it is supposed to guide people towards a decision. The content, your content strategy that you have that overlies all of this. SEO, of course, content is a part of SEO, which is SEO, search engine optimization, for any of you guys that hadn't heard that before. And so how do people find you organically in a non-paid fashion on Google, and how can they learn from you? And at the bottom of this graphic, you can see it culminates into what is your effective digital reach into your marketplace, and specifically towards your very best buyers. Now, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but another way to be thinking about your marketing mix, and this applies to off screen as well as on screen, but of course, today we're talking about on screen, is we want to break it down into your owned media. That is things that you have total control over, right? Like, for instance, your website. Some of your social media you have total control over, at least what's going out. You don't necessarily have control over how people respond to it, but it is your platform, as long as the platforms are working correctly. And we include shared media, right? So if you have things that are worthy of being shared, if they are really high value, then this is how people are sharing it, and you're reaching a larger audience because they value what you've put out there. Earned media, this is PR. This is like influencer marketing, and making sure that, if appropriate for your industry, that there are the influential people in the digital space know about you and care enough about you or are engaged by you in order to reach a specific audience. And then there's paid, right? So paying for advertisements on any of the social media channel, on Google AdWords, for placements, what's called programmatic, but to show up on different websites, that type of thing. And as a reminder, the customer is always at the center of this. So I mentioned targeting just a moment ago, but everything you should do should be based on going where the buyer goes. If the buyer is not on Instagram, do not go on Instagram. It doesn't matter what everybody's doing. If they are not on TikTok, then you don't need to be on TikTok, right? So you've got to be thoughtful about where are you going and does it make sense for your market? So that's how we break it down right there. Okay, stop sharing screen. All right, so that is kind of the overview. Now let's talk about how to make sure once you're moving forward that you are being effective inside of all of these different aspects of digital marketing. So I'm going to go through a few different channels, through social, through paid, through nurturing and tracking. Today, that's what we're going to cover. And yeah, and if you guys have questions, please post them over here or hit up me or my team via email or via DM, because that is what we are here for. So, all right, let's dive in. First, a couple of different things. You should always be optimizing your owned channel. So you already have them. And here's why. Number one, your website is your anchor, right? So people don't find your website on accident. They saw your URL somewhere, they heard about your name, and they took some actions in order to get themselves to your website. So this isn't the first touch that they would have seen. So that means your website is intended to convert interest or curiosity into action, right? You are trying to make sure that they are inquiring, interest into inquiry about you and saying, I really do like what you're saying here and I want to engage. So your website is absolutely critical. I mentioned, I love talking messaging. You need to make sure that what you're saying answers the questions that they have. What are they asking themselves and why did they bother visiting your website? It wasn't just for giggles, just to check it out, right? So they have something specific in mind, and you really need to make sure that the user experience that's happening on your website is totally aligned with what the site visitor is trying to achieve, what the buyer is trying to figure out by visiting your website. So that is absolutely critical. So the other owned channels, make sure that your social media and that any of your Google My Business, any of your directory listings are accurate. If you have reviews, if you can ask people for reviews, I strongly recommend that you do this. For instance, there's really great tools. One is called Nice Job that can help you request reviews from clients, but you want to make sure that the natural things that they come across are clean, that they are accurate, and they portray the correct message about your company. And that goes for social media as well. People do use social media in order to check you out, validate who you are, see who you know personally, as well as business, who is following you, whether or not you are follow worthy, and what you have to say. So these are important channels, and you want to make sure that you're maximizing those. So speaking specifically about social media, I mentioned earlier how to pick which social channels that you should be on. You go where your buyers go. So if you're currently doing social media, you want to consider what has the highest engagement or what has the highest success rate for you. Now, you're going to have to think critically about this because each channel is different. Some channels love high engagement, right? And that is really significant. Making sure that you have likes or shares or comments is absolutely critical. Instagram is a good example of this, TikTok as well. However, if you are looking at something like LinkedIn, people don't necessarily like, share, and comment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are not reading and engaging or taking in your content. And so it's really important to have some clarity around how do you know it's working, impressions, making sure that you're tracking, are people coming from LinkedIn to your website if you're looking at Google Analytics. So you want to figure out where are your people, which videos, if you're on YouTube, which videos are getting the best view times, the most views, what is being promoted, and is it optimized, right? So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the metrics. That means you have to have them set up. It means you or someone on your team needs to be looking at them, right? So next, when we're talking about content can get very overwhelming. There is so much amazing amazing advice out there about what type of content to create on social media. Let me give you a few super, super basic tips, like a few hacks that are incredibly helpful. Number one, use the calendar as your friend. Pre-schedule things, but look at if there are holidays. Do not do posts on holidays the day of, 12 months in advance that holiday is coming. Make sure that it is on the schedule and that you are creating that content ahead of time. Maybe you have specific holidays that are important to you that are not standard or national or faith-based holidays. Go ahead and put those down. Have some fun with those. If you have any anniversaries, if there are any significant trends that happen in a predictable time frame on the calendar, make sure that you're identifying that type of content in order to talk about. A couple additional things: share people. Let your team share and give advice, celebrate your team, give shout outs, help your clients, or allow or ask your clients to give you ideas or video testimonials or case studies or anything like that. But people love people. It's social media. So make sure that you are looking to share that, and then bulk create your content. Repurpose things that you have, longer content, into small snippets, and then they can go and engage in the longer piece of content as they want. But high value, always be follow worthy. The next thing too is, I really strongly encourage you, give what you want to get. If you want comments, you ought to be commenting. If you want followers, you need to be a follower. Engage in the platform, be a user, a community member, if that's what you're trying to build. It is insane and inappropriate and not true at all that you can just take, right? You reap what you sow. So you actually have to give. And man, this can be an incredibly effective, if you're in sales, any sort of business development or leadership, really allowing your voice to honor other people's work and to engage in the community. It's amazing how people will reciprocate that gift that you give them, and they will provide encouragement or referrals to you. Now, you shouldn't do it just because you're going to get something in return, but it does seem to be kind of a truth of life that you have a true generosity in your spirit, that it does come back to you, and it feels amazing. So don't give in order to get, but don't expect to get if you have no intention of giving. So there's my 2 cents about that. And then, yes, you should take a peek at what your competitors are doing, but you shouldn't do it just because they're doing it. You need to have your own strategy, your own thoughtfulness, your own brand voice, your own point of view that you are using to differentiate and to serve the market. You are not going to win by following your competitors, right? And so again, we don't want to be, not again, I didn't really say this earlier, but don't be enemy centered, right? Do not put them as the center of your universe. Put your customers as the center of your business universe, because you are here to serve, not just to sell. Okay, so other things, anything that you see that aligns with your values, celebrate that, put that out there. That is a great way. You can curate content. If something you see on Forbes or appears or blog or any type of content would be beneficial to your audience, share that. It's a much easier way than creating all of the content. And again, that is giving what you want to get. You want other people to share your content. If you do that for others, it's amazing what comes back to you. And just at the end of the day, I say this time and time again, and I will not stop beating this drum: be follow worthy. Put out things that you would think were interesting, things that would stop you in your tracks, things that would create you to have an emotional reaction. If you think your stuff is boring, it is. And so why would anyone else want to follow that? Be follow worthy. Okay, so that is some examples of optimizing some of your own social media platforms. So now, how do we know when we need to pay to play? Couple different things. If you have ginormous competitors that have so much content out there, sometimes you're going to need to pay to play. Now, I really advise, make sure that you are using tools, or you are getting an audit by a digital agency or something to find out what is the competitive landscape. You can find out how well your competitors rank for organic content. That is SEO. You can check out their domain authority for free as an example. You can also get a sense of how much they are spending per month. And you need to be looking at that and thinking, is that in my budget? Just have to be practical, right? And if it's not, what you need to understand is if you don't have a lot of money to spend, you are going to have to spend time and attention. You have to spend in order to grow. So whether it is money or time or attention, there is that trifecta that you've got to figure out. The more money that you spend, it doesn't let you off the hook for time and attention. However, it does give you a lot more reach and a little bit more forgiveness, if I'm being 100% honest. And so making sure that you can compete, that you know what is a proper investment so that you're not under investing compared to your competitors, because that is just an absolute waste. And then finding the best ways. So for instance, what do you need, and also go where your buyers go. So if your buyers are not Googling questions about your type of product or your service, you don't necessarily need to spend on Google AdWords unless you're bidding on your competitors' keywords, or unless you have a digital expert validating the type of keywords that will help you reach your market. And those keywords are very, very important in making sure that you avoid waste. Now, if you do pay for Google AdWords, that is really close to the bottom of the funnel lead generation. Typically, people who are Googling things are looking for a solution. And so you can oftentimes make the assumption that you're going to get more quality and more immediate needs, but you have to be vigilant. You have to be validating, are sales coming from the leads that you generated online? Now, in social media, you need to have a strategy for making sure that you're building brand awareness, which is not lead generation, you guys, for building interest points, which is what we would call middle of the funnel. Think areas where people are curious but not ready to buy, and you want to engage them. You want to give them free advice. You want to help them make a good decision. And if you're doing a good job, they will follow you or they will opt into your emails because you're bringing value. And then you do want some lead generation strategies on social media. However, they don't happen immediately. You really need to remember, even with paid social media, you have a tendency to be a little earlier in the decision process. It's social after all. They're not buying platforms. So can you get quality leads off of social media? Absolutely. But you need to be strategic about it, and you need to make sure that you have enough brand awareness, brand equity, that people trust that, are willing to click through that, and are willing to leave the content and the, interest that they are following on social media in order to shift gears in their mind towards a buying decision. And that can be challenging, especially if you're on the B2B side. You've got to be really thoughtful about that, and your messaging had better be awesome. Also, final thing in regards to paid media, make sure you can track everything. You rarely should be just driving paid ads to the home page of your website. You ought to be driving them to a landing page or something extremely specific, so that when you look at the traffic and when you look at the clicks, you know exactly where they came from. If it's not working, you can turn it off after a certain amount of time, or if it is working, you can bump up the budget and then watch how well that is. So make sure you are really maximizing what you're doing there in regards to tracking, so that you know what's working, and this is worth the time. With lead nurture, in a previous episode, I talked about align, build, and champion. So paid media is all about championing your message, getting it out there, broadcasting, shouting from the mountaintops, right? And if you are doing that, if you'll remember, the order for execution is align, build, and then champion. So you need to have built what you're tracking, the landing pages, the messaging, and even your nurture systems before you spend money. So if you want to capture leads, but they are not going to be immediate leads, you need to make sure that you're nurturing them. Do you have email campaigns set up? Do you have automation systems set up? Do you have text messaging? Do you have anything that helps you maintain contact through high value content with your prospects. Again, do not spam people, but do you know how you're going to guide them through? That is where align and build comes in, because you really, really need to do that before you start spending money on things that you cannot harvest. Okay, so that hits the big topics that I wanted to chat with you about today. It is very difficult to do a deep dive on digital marketing, but I hope you took away one or two action items from this. If not, if you have specific questions or broad questions, or if I confuse the living crap out of you, tell me, reach out, let me know. And we've got endless amounts of resources for you. We can point you to great articles. We can recommend resources, or if you, especially if you're a business to business company and you don't have internal resources to manage your paid, come talk to us about doing one of those free audits and giving you insight into the competitive landscape inside of your specific digital ecosystem. So, my friends, thank you so, so much for spending time with me. We have got, I believe, one more week of the road to revenue, and it's going to be about generosity and delighting your customers and all of the exciting, yummy, joyful aspects that are actually hidden opportunities in business development that sadly so many brands, so many companies, and so many marketers and leaders don't take advantage of. And this ramps up the enjoyment of the business world for you and for your prospects. So I'm super, super excited to end this long series on that finale next week. So really, really looking forward to it. Patty, so great to see you. And thank you so much for the encouragement. I appreciate you so much. Everyone, have an absolutely amazing finish to your Wednesday. And I wish you massive prosperity this week. Go big, care more, be awesome, because you are. So just go ahead and put it out there. Onward and upward.